I decoded the secret messages all over my town. I wish I didn't. I saw the first coded messages in the newspaper at the diner near my apartment. XKMT OZFR YHM between an ad for a lawnmower and someone looking for their cat. That's weird, I said to the waitress. Look at this gibberish. She shrugged. Probably just a printing error or someone messing around, she said. We get weird stuff in the classifieds all the time. But the next morning, there was another one taped to a telephone pole outside my building. QHXPGSVWHHLY. I pulled it down and showed it to my neighbor who was walking his dog. Have you seen these around? Yeah, some kids have been putting them up, he said. Probably for a scavenger hunt or one of those alternate reality games. Kids? I asked, but he was already walking away. At work, I mentioned it to my coworker who said she'd seen similar messages on flyers in the subway station. It's probably viral marketing for something, she said. Scott, you overthink everything, but I started seeing them everywhere. During the commercial break of the game that night, there was a 15-second ad that was just white text on a black screen. GRNV if MMRMT HFG. Did you see that? I asked my roommate. See what? He said, looking up from his phone. That weird commercial with the coded message, I said. Oh yeah, I think it's for a new escape room, he said. They're really going all out with the mystery angle. But escape rooms don't buy skywriting. The next day, the sky above the city had DZGXSXZIVUFOOB written in white smoke letters. That's gotta be expensive, I said to a woman at the bus stop. Some tech company, probably, she said. They have money to burn on stupid stunts. I started photographing every message I found. They were on bathroom stalls, receipts, even billboards. Nobody else seemed to care that our entire city was covered in cryptographic graffiti. Don't you think it's strange? I asked my friend at dinner. Scott, it's probably just marketing, he said. You're obsessing again. But I couldn't let it go. After 2 weeks, I had 73 different coded messages. I spread them out on my living room floor and started working. First, I tried every standard cipher. Caesar shifts, substitution, @bash, reverse alphabets, nothing. I ran frequency analysis with software. The patterns didn't match any language. I tried polyalphabetic ciphers with every key I could imagine. I tried treating them as anagrams, number codes, book ciphers. Nothing worked. I was calling in sick to work, spending 18 hours a day on these messages. My roommate found me at 3 a.m. surrounded by papers. Scott, you need to let this go, he said. Someone is sending these for a reason, I said. Weeks passed. I tried everything. Reading them backwards, upside down, diagonally. Converting to numbers and looking for mathematical patterns. Nothing made sense. Then I had a desperate idea. What if it wasn't about the letters themselves, but their positions? I assigned each letter a number based on its position in the alphabet, then started looking for patterns in the numbers. Still nothing. But then I noticed something about the timestamps of when I'd found them. The newspaper was at 7:15 a.m. The telephone pole at 8:23 a.m. What if the times mattered? I converted the times to minutes past midnight. 435 minutes, 503 minutes. I tried using these as shift values. Nothing. Then I tried something insane. What if the shift pattern was based on the exact second I'd photographed each message, combined with the GPS coordinates of where I'd found them? I spent 3 days building a complex algorithm using the longitude and latitude of each location, the timestamp down to the second, and the phase of the moon at that moment. It was completely unhinged, the kind of thing no sane person would ever try. But when I applied this impossibly complex key to the first message, treating each letter as having its own unique shift value based on when and where I'd found it, something impossible happened. XKMT OZFR YHM became, they know soon. My heart stopped. There was no way. This was a coincidence. But I tried the next one. QHXP GSV WHHLY became, lock the doors. I worked through all 73 messages using my insane algorithm. It took me 40 straight hours without sleep. Each one decoded perfectly. Time running out. Watch carefully. Stay inside after dark. Avoid the underground. They are already here. Trust no. One in uniform. The birds are watching. Most were vague warnings or instructions clearly meant for someone else, someone who was supposed to know how to decode them. Some were single words. Prepare, or hide, or run. These weren't random messages. This was a communication network, hidden in plain sight across the entire city. Someone was sending urgent instructions to someone else, maybe multiple people, using a code so complex that only the intended recipients would ever be able to break it. Except I had broken it. By pure obsessive determination and an algorithm so convoluted it bordered on madness, I'd accidentally cracked their system. I'd intercepted communications that were never meant for me. I didn't sleep that night, realizing what I'd stumbled into. The next morning, still wearing yesterday's clothes, I stumbled to work and saw a new message taped to the subway entrance. My hands shook as I photographed it at exactly 8:47:33 a.m. I ran my algorithm on BHFPMHDGHHNFXSYXHGG. The blood drained from my face as I read the decoded message. You know too much, Scott. I stare at the screen until the letters blur together, but no matter how many times I blink, the words stay the same. "You know too much, Scott," in plain text where there should be gibberish. My apartment feels smaller suddenly, like the walls moved closer while I wasn't looking. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and watch my hand shake. The tremor won't stop no matter how hard I press my palm flat against the cold surface. Someone knows my name. Someone knows I cracked their code. Someone knows exactly who I am and where to find me. I pick up my phone to call work and my boss picks up on the second ring. The words come out wrong, something about food poisoning and needing a sick day. She sounds annoyed but agrees, telling me to feel better soon. I hang up and stand in my kitchen for 10 minutes just breathing, trying to make my brain work right again. The apartment is too quiet. Every small sound makes me jump. The refrigerator hums and I spin around. A car door slams outside and I flinch. This is real. This is actually happening. I need to know for sure this isn't some elaborate coincidence or my mind playing tricks after too many sleepless nights. I force myself to leave the apartment, even though every instinct screams to lock the door and hide. The morning air hits my face and I realize I'm still wearing yesterday's clothes, still haven't showered or eaten. There's a bus shelter 2 blocks from my building where I've seen messages before. My legs feel weird walking there, like they belong to someone else. The shelter comes into view and sure enough, there's a fresh piece of paper taped to the inside wall. My hands shake so bad I almost drop my phone twice trying to get the camera app open. The message reads, DZGXSRMT BHFI NLEV. I check the time. 8:47:33 a.m. exactly. I make sure GPS is on and take the photo, capturing the exact coordinates. Back in my apartment, I pull up my algorithm and start running the numbers. Longitude, latitude, timestamp, moon phase, everything feeding into the calculation. The letters shift and rearrange. Watching your moves appears on my screen. My stomach drops so fast I have to sit down on the floor. This confirms everything. They know I'm testing them. They know I'm still decoding. They're watching me right now, this very second, tracking my movements around the city. I show up to work 3 hours late wearing the same wrinkled clothes from yesterday. My coworker looks up from her desk when I walk past and her expression changes. She asks if everything's okay. I tell her I'm fine, just didn't sleep well. The lie sounds hollow even to my own ears. In the meeting room, I try to focus on the project updates, but every word sounds like it's coming through water. Someone asks me a direct question and I have no idea what they said. I mumble something about checking the data and looking into it. My coworker catches me in the hallway after and asks again if I'm okay because I seem really out of it. I tell her I'm just stressed about deadlines. She doesn't look convinced. Back at my desk, I keep checking my phone, refreshing my email, looking at the photos of the messages. Every notification makes my heart jump. A colleague drops a binder, and the bang makes me physically jerk in my chair. People are starting to notice. I can feel their eyes on me when they think I'm not looking. I'm becoming that guy, the one everyone whispers about, the one who's clearly not handling something well. Walking home that evening, I take my usual route without thinking, then realize my mistake. I'm predictable. They know my patterns. Sure enough, half a block from my building, there's a telephone pole with a fresh message taped right at eye level. The placement is too perfect, too deliberate. This isn't random distribution anymore. They're putting these exactly where I'll see them, marking my territory like boundary markers. PMHD DZGXSRMT BHF is written on the paper in the same format as all the others. I photograph it with hands that won't stop shaking, already knowing what it will say before I run the algorithm. My building entrance is right there and I hurry inside, taking the stairs 2 at a time instead of waiting for the elevator. Inside my apartment, I lock the door, then check that it's locked, then check again. I run the decode on my laptop. No watching you appears on screen. They're not even being subtle anymore. They want me to know they're tracking me. I spend the next 4 hours making my apartment more secure, even though I know it's probably pointless. I find black electrical tape in the junk drawer and cover my laptop webcam, then do the same to my phone's front camera. It feels paranoid, but I've read enough articles about remote access. I go through every app on my phone, looking for anything I don't recognize or didn't install myself. Nothing obvious jumps out, but that doesn't mean they haven't found a way in. I change my email password to a random string of letters and numbers, writing it down on actual paper because I'll never remember it otherwise. Then I change my bank password, my social media passwords, everything I can think of. Each new password gets written on the same piece of paper that I fold up and stick in my wallet. The whole process takes forever and probably won't even help, but at least I'm doing something instead of just sitting here frozen with fear. My hands have finally stopped shaking. The busy work helps, gives my brain something to focus on besides the panic. My roommate comes home around 2 a.m. and finds me still awake, hunched over my laptop at the kitchen table surrounded by printed photos and notes. He stops in the doorway and asks what I'm doing up. I've been keeping this to myself for weeks, letting everyone think I'm just stressed or obsessive about some project. But the message this morning had my name. They know who I am. This has gone way past me being paranoid about random graffiti. I tell him everything. The coded messages all over the city, the algorithm I built, the 73 messages I decoded, the warnings and instructions hidden in plain sight. I show him the photos, walk him through the decryption process, show him the message from this morning with my actual name in it. He listens without interrupting, his expression getting more worried as I talk. When I finish, he's quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "I need to go to the police because this is serious. This is harassment and threats." I want to agree, but I can't imagine trying to explain my insane decoding algorithm to some skeptical cop. They'll think I'm crazy. They'll think I'm making it all up or having some kind of breakdown. But my roommate keeps pushing, saying I can't just ignore direct threats, saying they have to take this seriously. I promise I'll think about it, that I'll figure something out tomorrow. He makes me promise, actually makes me say the words out loud, before he finally heads to bed. I can't sleep, so I stay up making backups of everything. I buy 3 USB drives from an online store with overnight shipping, then realize that's stupid because they'll be delivered here tomorrow, and I need them now. I find an all-night convenience store 8 blocks away that sells cheap flash drives. The walk there at 3 a.m. feels surreal, the empty streets and closed storefronts. Back home, I copy everything onto all 3 drives. Every photo, every decode, my algorithm code, my notes, everything. I keep 1 drive in my desk drawer, put another in my gym bag, and the 3rd one I'll put in my gym locker tomorrow, where it'll be physically separated from my apartment. If someone breaks in here, if my laptop gets stolen or destroyed, if something happens to me, there will still be proof. Someone will be able to find it and see what I discovered. The thought is morbid but necessary. I'm dealing with people who put my name in a coded message. I have to assume the worst. My phone rings the next morning while I'm getting ready for work, and the screen shows unknown number in gray text. My finger hovers over the decline button, but something makes me answer. I put the phone to my ear and say hello. Nothing. Just silence on the other end, but not empty silence. I can hear someone breathing, slow and steady, definitely there. I say hello again, louder this time, my voice shaking slightly. Still nothing but that quiet breathing. 10 seconds pass that feel like an hour. Then the line goes dead. I stare at my phone screen, watching it fade back to the home screen. My heart is racing, so fast I can feel it in my throat. That wasn't a wrong number or a butt dial. Someone called specifically to test if I'd answer, to confirm my number is active and I'm reachable. They wanted me to know they have my direct line. The message is clear. We can reach you anytime we want. I pull up the police department website and find their anonymous tip portal buried in the footer links. The form has fields for incident description, location, date and time, and an optional contact email. I type out everything, describing the coded messaging network, the algorithm I used to crack it, the threatening messages directed at me personally. I include the message with my name, the one about watching my moves, all of it. I don't include my real name or contact info because the word anonymous feels important right now. When I hit submit, an automated response appears saying someone will review tips within 72 hours. 72 hours. 3 full days while I walk around knowing they're watching me, tracking me, testing my phone number. The response feels inadequate, but at least I reported it. At least there's now an official record somewhere in the system that this is happening. I spend my lunch break going through every social media account I have, deleting posts with location tags. There are hundreds of them. Check-ins at restaurants, tagged photos at bars, vacation posts with GPS coordinates embedded in the image data. I've been broadcasting my exact location and daily routines for years without thinking twice about it. Every coffee shop I frequent, every gym I go to, every friend's house I visit, all documented in public. I delete them systematically, working backwards through years of posts. My location history is a complete map of my life, and I handed it to them for free. The damage is done, they already have all this information, but at least I can stop making it worse. At least I can stop updating them in real time about where I am and what I'm doing. My profile looks bare and weird now with all the gaps, but it feels slightly safer. Slightly less exposed. The next morning I pull on my blue jacket without thinking about it, just grabbing whatever's clean from my closet. I'm 3 blocks from my apartment when I spot a new message taped to a lamppost. My hands shake as I photograph it at 8:23:47 a.m. and run it through my algorithm. Nice blue jacket today, stares back at me from my phone screen. I look down at my jacket, then spin around scanning the street. Commuters walk past checking their phones. A woman pushes a stroller. A guy in a suit carries coffee. Nobody's looking at me. Nobody seems to care. But someone saw what I put on this morning. Someone watched me leave my building and sent this message knowing I'd find it on my route to work. I rip the paper down and stuff it in my pocket, my heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. I take a different route to the subway, checking behind me every few steps. At lunch, I leave work early and take the bus across town to the newspaper office where that first classified ad appeared. The building is old brick with a small lobby and a receptionist behind thick glass. I explain that I need information about a classified ad from 3 weeks ago, pulling up the photo on my phone to show her. She barely glances at it before shaking her head and saying they can't share customer information. I try explaining it's important, that I need to know who placed it, but she just repeats the same line about privacy policies. The dead end makes me want to scream because I need to trace this back to whoever's running the operation. I need names, addresses, payment records, anything that would tell me who's behind this network. But she won't budge and I leave with nothing, another door slammed in my face. My phone buzzes with a text from my friend asking if I want to grab drinks tonight. I stare at the message for a full minute before typing back that I'm swamped with work and can't make it. The lie comes easily now. I can't sit in a bar making small talk when every person on the street might be watching me. I can't pretend everything's normal when someone knows what jacket I'm wearing. I'm withdrawing from everyone except my roommate, and I know that's not healthy, but I can't help it. Being around people feels dangerous now, like I'm putting them at risk or giving away information just by existing near them. I silence my phone and shove it back in my pocket. That afternoon, I spread out a city map on my living room floor and mark every single location where I found a coded message. I use different colored pins for different types of locations. Red for subway stations, blue for bus stops, green for street corners, yellow for businesses. The pattern jumps out immediately. They cluster around major transit stations and busy intersections. The messages aren't random at all. Whoever's posting them wants maximum visibility in high traffic areas, which means this network reaches a lot of people. Way more than just me. I take photos of the map from different angles, documenting the pattern. This is evidence that proves systematic placement, not random vandalism. The next morning, my boss Charmaine calls me into her office and closes the door. She has a printed spreadsheet on her desk showing my attendance for the past 2 weeks. Late arrivals highlighted in yellow, missed deadlines marked in red. She goes through each one asking what happened, and I mumble apologies about personal issues and promise to do better. But she looks skeptical, her mouth pressed into a thin line. She says my work quality has always been good, but lately I've been distracted and unreliable. She warns me this can't continue, or we'll need to have a more serious conversation about my future here. I nod and agree, and get out of her office as fast as I can, my face burning with shame. My career is falling apart because I can't stop obsessing over these messages. That night, I create a new email account using a fake name and a VPN to hide my location. I spend 2 hours drafting a detailed message to a local investigative journalist I found online. I explain everything about the coded messages, include sample photos with my decodes as proof, describe the harassment and surveillance. I attach my algorithm documentation and the map showing message clustering patterns. At 11 p.m., I finally work up the courage to hit send. Then I lie in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if I just made everything worse. What if the journalist thinks I'm crazy? What if they contact whoever's running this network to verify the story? What if I just painted an even bigger target on my back? 3 days pass with no response, and I start to think the journalist ignored my email as spam from a paranoid person. Then on Thursday morning, I check my burner email, and there's a reply from Daniela Hall asking to meet at a coffee shop downtown. She suggests Saturday at 2 p.m. in a public place during business hours. I write back immediately agreeing, but insisting we sit near windows where I can see the street. Saturday arrives, and I get to the coffee shop 20 minutes early, choosing a corner table with clear sightlines to both exits. Daniela shows up right on time, a woman in her 30s with dark hair pulled back and a leather notebook under her arm. She orders coffee and sits across from me, pulling out a pen without any small talk. She listens to my whole story without interrupting, just taking notes and nodding. When I finish, she asks to see my decoding algorithm and evidence photos. I walk her through everything on my laptop, showing her the math behind the location and timestamp calculations. She studies it carefully, asking smart questions about how I verified the pattern and whether I've found any exceptions. Daniela closes her notebook and tells me she'll file Freedom of Information Act requests with the City Transit Authority and IT Department to see if there's any official record of this messaging system. Her professional approach makes me feel less crazy, like maybe this is a real story worth investigating instead of paranoid delusions. She explains the FOIA process takes time, but if there's any government connection, she'll find it. She asks if I'm willing to go on the record eventually, and I say yes, because staying anonymous hasn't kept me safe anyway. We exchange burner phone numbers, and she promises to update me as soon as she learns anything. Walking out of the coffee shop, I feel lighter than I have in weeks, like I'm not alone in this anymore. The next afternoon, I'm photographing a new message outside a subway station when I notice 2 people in different locations both watching me instead of walking past. One's a guy in a gray hoodie leaning against a building across the street. The other's a woman in business clothes standing near a bus stop, but not getting on any buses. I test it by moving down the block to a different spot, and they both adjust their positions to keep me in view. The guy crosses the street, the woman starts walking in my direction. My anxiety shoots through the roof and I duck into the subway station, taking the first train that arrives regardless of where it's going. I ride for 20 minutes before getting off and switching to a different line, checking constantly to see if anyone followed me. I can't tell anymore. Everyone looks suspicious when you're this paranoid. That night I get email notifications that someone tried to log into my accounts from an IP address in another state. First my personal email, then my social media, then my cloud storage. All within a 10-minute window. I immediately enable 2-factor authentication on everything and change all my passwords again to random strings of letters and numbers. My hands shake as I type, realizing they're actively trying to access my digital life. They want to see what I know, what evidence I have, who I've been talking to. The login attempts mean they're escalating, getting more aggressive and trying to find out what I've discovered. I check my burner email and send Daniela a quick message documenting the login attempts with screenshots of the security alerts. She responds within minutes saying to save everything and keep documenting. This is evidence of harassment she can use. The next morning, I leave my apartment an hour early and walk 3 blocks in the wrong direction before doubling back through an alley. I take the subway 1 stop past my usual station, get off, cross to the other platform, and ride back. At the transfer point, I switch to a different line even though it takes me out of my way. The whole time, I'm scanning faces around me, looking for anyone who appears twice or pays too much attention. A guy in a gray jacket gets on the same car as me, and I watch him for 3 stops until he pulls out his phone and starts a video call with what sounds like his kid. A woman with a red backpack walks behind me for 2 blocks, but then goes into a coffee shop. I can't tell if I'm being followed or if I'm just seeing patterns that aren't there. Everyone looks suspicious when you're this paranoid. Every person checking their phone could be texting about my location. Every casual glance in my direction feels like surveillance. By the time I get to work, I'm 40 minutes late and sweating even though it's not hot outside. My coworker asks if I'm okay, and I just say I took a different route this morning. At lunch, my phone buzzes with a text from my bank about suspicious activity on my debit card. Someone tried to charge $600 at an electronics store in Philadelphia. Then another alert comes through for a gas station purchase in Delaware. I'm sitting at my desk in the city, and someone is actively using my card information 3 states away. I call the fraud department and spend my entire lunch break on hold, then explaining the situation to 3 different people who transfer me around. They cancel my card and say they'll send a new one in 7 to 10 business days. I have to dispute each fraudulent charge separately, filling out forms and providing details about where I actually was when the purchases happened. The whole process takes an hour and leaves me exhausted and frustrated. This feels like another way they're messing with my life beyond just the threatening messages. They're hitting me from multiple angles, making everything harder, disrupting my normal routine in ways that are hard to prove or explain. I get back to my desk 15 minutes late from lunch, and my boss gives me a look but doesn't say anything. Around 3 p.m., my regular phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. No area code I recognize. The message just says, "They are already here," those exact words. One of my own decoded messages from weeks ago, sent back to me on my personal phone. My hands start shaking as I stare at the screen. My phone number isn't public. I don't give it out randomly. I've been careful about who has it. The fact that they can text me directly means they've definitely compromised my device somehow. Maybe they've been tracking everything I do on this phone. Every search, every photo, every message. I feel sick thinking about how long they might have had access. I delete the text immediately, then realize that's probably pointless if they're already in my phone. After work, I stop at a convenience store 6 blocks from my apartment and buy a cheap prepaid phone with cash. $30 for the phone, another $20 for minutes. The clerk barely looks at me as I pay. I activate it in the store parking lot, sitting in my car and following the instructions on the tiny screen. The phone is basic, no smartphone features, just calls and texts. I only give the number to my roommate and Daniela, making them both promise not to write it down anywhere connected to my name. I keep my regular phone on and in my pocket, but I'm not using it for anything important anymore. It feels like spy movie nonsense, having a burner phone and watching for surveillance, but I need at least one communication channel they don't control. That evening, Daniela calls my new burner number. Her voice sounds tense when I answer. The initial FOIA requests came back denied. The city claims the information is related to ongoing security operations and can't be released. She's filing appeals through the newspaper's legal team, but it'll take weeks to get a response. The denials actually suggest there is something official here, she says. Random vandalism or marketing wouldn't be protected under security operation exemptions. This is connected to something real, something the city doesn't want public. That should make me feel better, like my paranoia is justified, but instead it just makes me more scared. If this is official enough to be protected by security exemptions, that means I'm up against something much bigger than random harassment. The next morning, I finally go to the police station in person. I've put this off because I wasn't sure they'd take me seriously, but things are escalating too fast to ignore. The lobby smells like coffee and floor cleaner. I tell the officer at the front desk I need to file a report about harassment and threats. She takes my name and makes me wait in a plastic chair for 20 minutes. Eventually, a detective comes out and introduces himself as Emmett Shue. He's younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, wearing a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. We go to a small interview room with a table and 2 chairs. I tell him everything. The coded messages, the algorithm, the threats using my name, the surveillance, the fraud on my bank account, the text with my decoded message. He takes notes on a yellow legal pad, stopping me occasionally to ask for specific dates or details. When I finish, he leans back in his chair and looks at his notes for a long moment. He says he'll look into it, but warns me that coded messages are hard to prosecute. Unless they contain explicit threats or can be tied to specific criminal activity, they fall into a gray area. The financial fraud is more concrete, and he can file that as part of the report. The surveillance is harder to prove without evidence of someone actually following me. He makes copies of the message photos I have on my phone and takes down Daniela's contact information. Before I leave, he gives me practical advice. Freeze my credit with all 3 bureaus so no one can open accounts in my name. Vary my routines and routes so I'm not predictable. Document every suspicious incident with dates, times, and details. His tips are straightforward and actionable, not dramatic or scary, which somehow makes me feel less helpless. Like there are concrete steps I can take beyond just panicking. 2 days later, my HR manager Charmaine Phillips calls me into her office. She's in her 50s with gray hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She has a folder on her desk with my name on it. She opens it and shows me printed documentation of my attendance issues over the past month. Late arrivals, early departures, extended lunch breaks, missed meetings. Everything is listed with specific dates and times. She says my performance has declined noticeably, and other team members have had to cover my work. This is a formal warning that goes in my employee file. If things don't improve within 30 days, I could face additional disciplinary action up to and including termination. I sign the paperwork because I have no choice. I can't explain that I'm being harassed without sounding completely unhinged. I just promise to do better and leave her office feeling trapped. My career is suffering because of this situation, and there's nothing I can do about it except hope it ends soon. That afternoon, I go to a bank across town and rent a safe deposit box. The process takes forever, filling out forms and showing ID and waiting for a bank employee to escort me to the vault. The box is small, maybe 6 inches by 10 inches. I store one USB drive with all my evidence there. Photos of every message, my decoding algorithm, documentation of the harassment, screenshots of the fraud alerts, everything. Then I go to the post office and mail another USB drive to a lawyer's office Daniela recommended. I use certified mail with tracking so I'll know it arrived. If anything happens to me, multiple people will have access to proof of what I discovered. The thought is morbid but necessary. Around 2 a.m. that night, I wake up to the sound of someone trying my apartment door handle. The jiggling is quiet but distinct, metal on metal, someone testing if it's locked. My heart starts racing immediately. I grab my phone, the burner, not my regular one, and call 911. I whisper that someone is trying to break into my apartment. The dispatcher asks if I'm in immediate danger, and I say, I don't know, they're still outside my door. She says a patrol car is on the way and to stay on the line. The jiggling stops. I hear footsteps in the hallway, moving away. Within 10 minutes, there's a knock and a voice saying police. I look through the peephole and see 2 officers in uniform. I open the door and they ask me questions about what I heard and when. They check the hallway and stairwell but don't find anyone. One officer examines my door lock and says there are no visible signs of tampering. They take a report and give me an incident number. After they leave, I sit on my couch with all the lights on, too wired to sleep, knowing someone was just outside my door in the middle of the night. The next morning, my roommate knocks on my door around 8 a.m. and asks if we can talk. We sit at the kitchen table with coffee, and he tells me he barely slept after hearing someone try the door. He wants to add a chain lock and maybe get one of those doorbell cameras for the hallway. I tell him a camera might just give them another way to watch us, another data stream they could hack into. He looks at me like I'm being paranoid, but then nods slowly, realizing I might be right. We agree on new rules. Always use the deadbolt, even during the day. Never open the door without checking the peephole first. No letting in anyone we don't personally know, even if they claim to be maintenance or delivery. He suggests we tell our neighbors to watch for suspicious people in the building. The conversation makes everything feel more real, more dangerous, but also makes me feel less alone in dealing with this. 2 days later, my phone rings while I'm making breakfast. It's Daniela, and she sounds excited, talking fast before I can even say hello. She found something in old city records, a procurement document from last year. The City Transit Authority paid a private security firm for something called a public messaging resilience test. The contract was for 6 months and cost almost $200,000. It's not solid proof yet, but it's the first official paper trail connecting these coded messages to an actual organization with city contracts. She's digging deeper to find out what company got the contract and what the test was supposed to involve. I write down the details while she talks, my hand shaking slightly because this validates everything. It's not just random vandalism or my imagination. There's a real program behind this, funded by actual city money. The next afternoon, I come home to find a certified letter waiting in my mailbox. The return address is a law firm downtown, one of those places with 5 partner names in the title. I sign for it and take it upstairs, my stomach tight with worry. Inside is a formal letter on expensive paper, demanding I sign a non-disclosure agreement about proprietary communication systems. They don't mention the coded messages directly, but it's obvious what they mean. The letter says concerned parties have become aware of my unauthorized access to private information, and they require my immediate cooperation. If I don't sign within 10 business days, they'll pursue all available legal remedies. The legal threat is scary, making this feel official and serious in a way the messages never did. But it's also validating because it proves I stumbled onto something real. Someone is worried enough to send lawyers after me, which means I have leverage I didn't know I had. I call Daniela, and she gives me the number for a legal clinic she knows, a place that helps people with civil rights issues. The next day, I take the letter there and meet with an attorney who reviews it carefully. She tells me not to sign anything without her review first. She explains this could be witness tampering if there's an investigation, that threatening someone to stay quiet about potential crimes is illegal. She advises me to document every intimidation attempt with dates, times, and details. Keep copies of everything. Take screenshots. Write down conversations while they're fresh in my memory. Her professional advice makes me feel slightly protected by the law, like there are rules even these people have to follow. She gives me her card and tells me to call immediately if they escalate beyond legal letters. That same week, Detective Emmett calls my burner phone. He found 3 other people who reported similar experiences with coded messages and surveillance over the past year. None of them cracked the code like I did, but they all described the same pattern. Messages appearing in their neighborhoods, feeling watched, getting strange phone calls. One person moved to another city because of it. Knowing I'm not alone makes me feel less isolated, less like I'm losing my mind. There's a pattern here that authorities might actually take seriously. Emmett says he's building a case, but it's slow because the evidence is scattered and circumstantial. He needs something concrete that connects all the incidents to a specific organization or person. I tell him about Daniela's procurement document, and he asks me to send him everything she's found. The following morning, I'm walking past the subway entrance near my building when I spot another coded message taped to the metal railing. I photograph it at exactly 7:23:47 a.m. with my burner phone. Back home, I run it through my algorithm and it decodes to avoid blue line today. I stare at the message for a full minute, trying to decide what to do. Is this a threat? A warning? That evening, the news reports a small electrical fire at a blue line station downtown that caused evacuations during rush hour. Nobody was hurt, but thousands of commuters got delayed for hours. I sit on my couch watching the coverage, deeply disturbed because either they're causing these problems or they have inside information about infrastructure failures. Either option is bad. Either they're dangerous criminals or they're connected to people who know about city systems before the public does. I spend an hour writing an anonymous tip to the Transit Authority's safety department through their online form. I explain about the warning message and include the decoded text and timestamp. I suggest they investigate whether someone has advanced knowledge of infrastructure problems. The automated response says they'll review my submission within 5 business days. I never hear back from them. The silence is frustrating because I'm trying to help and getting ignored by the very people who should care about threats to public safety. It makes me wonder if they already know about the messaging network, if maybe they're part of it somehow. The paranoid thought won't leave my head even though I know it's probably just bureaucratic incompetence. 3 days later, I'm walking home from the grocery store when I see a teenager posting flyers on telephone poles. They're the same size and paper as the coded messages. I follow him for 2 blocks, staying far enough back that he doesn't notice. He posts 5 more flyers at specific locations, pulling them from a folder in his backpack. When he stops in a parking lot to check his phone, I approach him and ask who hired him to put up those flyers. He looks startled, maybe 16 years old with headphones around his neck. He says he's just a temp worker. Someone pays him cash to post flyers at specific addresses from a list. He picks up new batches twice a week from a POA box downtown, building 340 on Millard Street. He doesn't know who hires him. Everything goes through an app that pays him $20 per route. I thank him and walk away, my mind racing with this new information. A POA box means a physical location, an actual place where the network operates. That evening, I call Daniela and tell her about the POA box. She wants to check it out immediately. We meet at a coffee shop near Millard Street and walk to the building together. It's a private mailbox place, the kind where you rent boxes by the month. We can't go inside without raising suspicion, so we sit in her car across the street and wait. Around 6 p.m., a courier in plain clothes walks in carrying a large envelope. Through the window, we watch him open one of the boxes and swap the envelope for another one already inside. Then he walks out and gets into a sedan parked down the block. Daniela takes photos of the license plate and the exchange with her phone. We're both excited because we're finally getting somewhere in tracing the network's logistics, seeing the actual mechanics of how they distribute messages. But then the courier looks directly at Daniela's car before getting in his sedan. He makes eye contact with me through the window, and I realize we've been spotted. My stomach drops. Daniela starts the car immediately and we drive away, turning at the first intersection. She's mad at me, saying I was too obvious, that I leaned forward at the wrong time and probably reflected light off my face. She says we can't afford to spook them before we have enough evidence to publish. If they know we're investigating, they'll change their methods or disappear completely. I apologize, but the damage is done. We just showed our hand to someone in their network. I spend the drive home wondering what they'll do now that they know we're actively tracking them. At work the next Monday, my boss calls me into her office for what she says is a routine check-in. Charmaine from HR is there too, sitting with a folder in her lap and a fake smile on her face. My boss explains they're adjusting my role to better match my current bandwidth and focus areas. Starting immediately, I'm off the Johnson account and the Brennan project. They're moving me to back-office tasks, data entry stuff, solo projects that don't involve client meetings. My pay stays exactly the same, she says, like that makes it better. I nod and say I understand, but we all know what this really is. They don't trust me anymore. My weird behavior, the missed days, the distracted meetings, it all added up. They're quietly moving me aside, keeping me on payroll but taking away anything important. My career is basically frozen now, stalled out because I decoded some messages and got tangled up in whatever this network thing is. 2 days later, my burner phone rings while I'm eating lunch at my desk. Unknown number. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. The voice on the other end is smooth and friendly, like a sales guy or a consultant. He introduces himself as Lawrence Barron and says he's been following my work with interest. My decryption skills are impressive, he says. Very impressive. He runs a security consulting firm and they could use someone with my particular talents. The pay would be good, much better than what I'm making now. His tone is casual, but there's something underneath it, like he's offering me a deal I'd be stupid to refuse. He mentions that things could get complicated for people who interfere with certain operations, but smart people who cooperate tend to do very well. I don't say much, just listen while my hands start sweating. When he asks if I'm interested, I tell him I need to think about it. He says that's fine, he'll be in touch, and the line goes dead. The whole call lasted maybe 90 seconds, but it leaves me feeling sick. This is the guy behind everything, or at least connected to whoever is, and now he's trying to buy me off or threaten me. I can't tell which. I call Detective Shu that afternoon from a coffee shop 3 blocks from my office. I tell him about Barron's call, every detail I can remember. Shu sounds concerned and tells me not to engage with anyone from the network directly. If I talk to Barron again or try to investigate on my own, I could mess up their case, interfere with whatever they're building. He says they're looking into Barron Risk Solutions now, and they need me to sit tight and let them handle it. I'm frustrated because part of me wants to confront these people, to tell Barron exactly what I think of his coded message threats and his job offer. But I know Shu is right. I'm not a detective or a lawyer. I'm just some guy who decoded messages he wasn't supposed to see. Getting in deeper will only make things worse. So I promised Shu I'll stay away from Barron and let him know if anyone contacts me again. The FOIA appeal finally comes through a week later. Daniela calls me excited, talking fast about partial documents she just received. The City Transit Authority paid a company called Barron Risk Solutions $75,000 last year for something called a Communication Resilience Pilot Program. The documents are heavily redacted, but there's enough there to prove this was a real contracted operation, not just random vandalism or some conspiracy theory. Barron's company was hired by the city to do something involving public messaging systems. The details are blacked out, but the payment records and contract signatures are right there in black and white. This is the proof we needed. It connects everything, shows that the coded messages were part of an official program that somehow went wrong or expanded beyond its original scope. Daniela says her editor is taking this seriously now, asking questions about when we can publish. I spend the next 3 days compiling everything into one master timeline. All my message photos with timestamps and GPS coordinates, my decoding algorithm with step-by-step instructions, every harassment incident logged with dates and details, the legal threat letters, the FOIA documents, the procurement records. I organize it all chronologically so anyone can see the pattern, how this network operated and how they responded when I cracked their code. I share the complete file with both Daniela and Detective Shu through encrypted email. Laying it all out in order like this makes everything undeniable. It's not paranoia or obsession. It's documentation of an actual covert operation that targeted me after I accidentally broke their system. Daniela says the timeline is perfect for the article. Shu says it helps their investigation significantly. When I get home that Friday evening, I notice something wrong with my door before I even put the key in. Fresh scratches around the lock, small metal marks like someone tried to pick it. Not deep enough to break in, but clear evidence that someone attempted it. My hands shake as I unlock the door and check inside. Nothing seems moved or taken, but I don't feel safe here anymore. I don't even bother calling the police this time. What would they do? File another report that goes nowhere. Instead, I just pack a bag with clothes and my laptop and the USB drives with all my evidence. I text my roommate that I'm staying somewhere else for a while and I'll explain later. Then I leave, locking the door behind me and wondering if I'll ever feel comfortable in my own apartment again. My friend across town doesn't ask many questions when I show up at his door that night, asking if I can crash on his couch. He just makes space and hands me a blanket and says, "Stay as long as I need." For 2 nights, I sleep better than I have in weeks, even though I'm displaced and uncomfortable on a couch that's too short. Being away from my usual routine, from my apartment where they know I live, helps me relax enough to actually rest. My friend goes to work during the day, and I work remotely from his place, avoiding my neighborhood entirely. It's not a permanent solution, but it gives me breathing room to think and plan without constantly looking over my shoulder. During my walks around this different part of the city, I start noticing the coded messages have changed their pattern. They're appearing less often now, maybe 1 or 2 a day instead of the constant stream from before. The locations are different too, spread out across neighborhoods they didn't target before. It's like the network is reacting to all the attention, adjusting their operations because they know people are watching now. They're being more careful, more strategic about where they post messages. The change confirms what I suspected, that this network is actively managed and responsive. They're not just following some automated schedule. Someone is making decisions, adapting to the situation, trying to stay ahead of the investigation. Another certified letter arrives at my apartment while I'm staying at my friend's place. My roommate texts me a photo of it. The return address is from a law firm I don't recognize. When I go back to get it the next day, I read the formal cease and desist letter from Barron's legal team. It demands that I immediately stop interfering with legitimate business operations conducted by Barron Risk Solutions. It threatens legal action if I continue to harass their employees, damage their reputation, or disrupt their contracted services. The escalating legal pressure scares me, but I'm too deep into this to back down now. If I stop, if I let them intimidate me into silence, then they win. All the harassment and threats and career damage will have been for nothing. So I photograph the letter, add it to my evidence file, and forward a copy to Detective Shu. Daniela calls my burner the following afternoon with news. Her editor has tentatively approved moving forward with the story. The newspaper's legal team is doing final review of everything to make sure they're protected from defamation claims, but it looks like they're actually going to publish. She warns me that once this article goes live, I'll be publicly identified. My name will be in the story, my photo probably included. There's no going back to being anonymous after that. Everyone will know I'm the person who decoded the messages and exposed this network. The thought terrifies me, but I tell her I'm ready. Staying silent hasn't kept me safe. Maybe going public will actually protect me better than hiding, and maybe it'll help other people who got targeted by this system. We agree to meet next week to finalize the article and prepare for publication. 2 days later, I meet Daniela at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the newspaper office and tell her I'm ready to go on record with my full name and everything. She sets her notebook on the table and asks if I'm absolutely sure because once the article publishes, there's no taking it back. I nod and say staying anonymous hasn't kept me safe anyway, and maybe going public will actually protect me better than hiding. She writes that down and asks me to walk through the whole timeline again with specific dates and times for the legal team's review. We spend 2 hours going over every detail while I drink 3 cups of coffee and try not to think about what happens when my name is attached to all of this. Daniela gets a text from her editor saying they finally got someone from City Transit to talk on background, and she steps outside to take the call. When she comes back 15 minutes later, she's practically bouncing with energy because a staff member confirmed the resilience test was only supposed to be internal communications between transit employees. Nobody at the city level authorized using it to target private citizens or post messages in public spaces where regular people would see them. The source said the program went way beyond its approved scope, and they're worried about liability now that someone's documenting everything. This is huge because it shows Barron Risk Solutions wasn't just doing what the city asked, they expanded the operation on their own. Daniela says this corroboration from an official source makes the story much stronger and proves the program violated its own guidelines. My phone buzzes with a call from Shu, and I step away from our table to answer it. He says he did some digging into Barron Risk Solutions, and they're known for doing gray area work that municipalities and corporations want done but don't want their fingerprints on. They handle things like surveillance operations, background investigations that push legal boundaries and communication systems designed to avoid public records requests. He tells me they have lawyers on retainer and a reputation for being aggressive when their operations get exposed. Shu says I need to be really careful and have a solid safety plan ready for when the story breaks because these aren't people who take public embarrassment lightly. I thank him and go back to Daniela's table feeling even more nervous than before. We spend the next hour working out every detail of my safety plan for publication day. I'll stay at my friend's apartment across town starting the night before the article goes live. I'll vary my routes and avoid my usual coffee shop and gym for at least a week. I'll check in with Daniela every 4 hours, and I'll keep Shu's direct number on speed dial in case anything happens. She makes me promise not to engage with anyone who contacts me about the story and to forward all threats or harassment directly to the police. We're treating this like a serious threat because we've seen how these people operate, and we know they won't just let this go quietly. The article gets scheduled to publish in 3 days, and I barely sleep during that time. The morning it's supposed to go live, I wake up at my friend's place and find a folded piece of paper that someone slipped under the door during the night. My hands shake as I photograph it at exactly 6:12 a.m. and run it through my algorithm. The decoded message is just 2 words in all caps, and I stare at my phone screen reading "last chance" over and over. I immediately forward everything to Shu with a text saying someone found me at my friend's address. He responds within 2 minutes saying, "This is witness intimidation, and I should document everything but stay inside until the article publishes." I pace around the apartment checking the door locks and window latches while my friend makes coffee and tries to calm me down. At exactly 6 a.m., the article goes live on the newspaper's website with the headline, "Secret Coded Messages Across City, Linked to Private Security Firm," and my full name is right there in the second paragraph. My stomach drops as I read through it, seeing my story laid out for everyone. My photos of the coded messages, the decoded warnings, the harassment timeline, everything. Within minutes, the comment section fills up with reactions and they're all over the place. Some people are completely fascinated and thanking me for exposing this. Others are calling it an elaborate hoax and saying I made everything up for attention. Conspiracy theorists flood in with theories about government mind control and alien communication networks. My phone starts buzzing with texts from people I haven't talked to in years, asking if it's really me in the article. By 9 a.m., the story is trending on local social media, and news sites are picking it up. At noon, the Transit Authority puts out an official statement saying they're immediately suspending the communication resilience pilot, pending a full review of how it was implemented. They deny any intent to harass private citizens, and say the program was designed solely to test internal communication protocols during infrastructure disruptions. The statement is carefully worded to admit the program existed, while deflecting all responsibility for how Barron Risk Solutions actually used it. It's a classic non-apology that protects them legally while throwing the contractor under the bus. An hour later, Daniela texts me that Barron Risk Solutions just sent the newspaper's legal department a letter threatening to sue for defamation. She says not to worry because the paper's lawyers reviewed everything before publication and they're confident in all our documented evidence. The legal posturing still makes my anxiety spike because I know lawsuits can drag on for years even when you're right. Daniela calls me to say the editor is standing behind the story completely and their legal team is ready to fight if Barron actually files. Within 3 hours of the article publishing, someone posts my home address on multiple forums and social media platforms. Anonymous accounts start sending me messages calling me paranoid and crazy and accusing me of making everything up for attention. The harassment is vicious and personal, people digging through my old social media posts and twisting everything to make me look unstable. Someone creates a whole thread analyzing my photos claiming I doctored them and the decoding algorithm is fake. I try not to read the comments, but I can't help myself, and each one feels like a punch to the gut. My phone won't stop buzzing with notifications, and I finally turn it off completely. Zhu calls my burner phone that evening and says he arranged for extra patrol cars to drive past my apartment building and my friend's place every few hours. He advises me to keep varying where I stay for at least the next week and to be aware of my surroundings whenever I go out. The police protection helps me feel slightly safer, even though I know they can't watch me all the time. He also says the witness intimidation charge from this morning's message is being taken seriously, and they're investigating how someone tracked me to my friend's address. The next morning, my phone rings with a call from work, and I almost don't answer because I'm expecting more harassment. But it's Charmaine from HR, and her voice is surprisingly kind when she tells me they're setting up a temporary remote work arrangement so I don't have to come into the office while things settle down. She mentions the employee assistance program again, and this time I actually write down the phone number because maybe I do need to talk to someone professional about all this. I thank her and realize work has been way more understanding than I expected, like maybe they actually believe me instead of thinking I'm just making excuses for poor performance. That afternoon, Daniela texts me a link to her follow-up article that just published online. I open it on my phone and see the full contract between the city and Barron Risk Solutions right there in black and white, obtained through the Freedom of Information Act requests. The article explains how the city council is scheduling a public hearing about the program in 3 weeks, which feels like forever, but at least something official is happening. I screenshot the article and send it to Detective Shu with a message saying, "This is the proof we needed all along." An hour later, my neighbor from the apartment building sends me a video file through email with a note saying she thought I'd want to see this. I download it and watch footage from her doorbell camera showing 2 guys in contractor vests posting flyers on our street at 5 a.m. 3 weeks ago. The timestamp matches exactly when I first started finding messages in my neighborhood, and the video quality is clear enough to see their faces and the company logo on their truck. I forward the video to both Daniela and Emmett because it's more evidence that this network was real and organized, not just random vandalism like everyone kept trying to tell me. By evening, Barron Risk Solutions puts out an official statement that I see shared all over social media. The statement apologizes for implementation concerns with their pilot program and says any harassment of private citizens was caused by third-party contractors who exceeded their authorized scope. It's obviously written by lawyers to avoid admitting real fault, but at least they're acknowledging something went wrong instead of pretending the whole thing never happened. Daniela calls me on my burner phone to say the statement is basically them trying to protect themselves from lawsuits while throwing the contractors under the bus. Over the next week, I notice something strange when I'm walking around the city. The coded messages just stop appearing completely. I check all the usual spots where I used to find them, the telephone poles near my building, and the bulletin boards at the subway stations, and the walls near the coffee shop, and they're all blank. I text Detective Shu asking if he's noticed the same thing, and he confirms that other people who were targeted are reporting the messages disappeared overnight. The sudden silence is actually kind of creepy after months of seeing those codes everywhere I went, like someone flipped a switch and shut down the entire network at once. I start seeing a therapist the following week, using the employee assistance program that Charmaine set up for me. The therapist is this older woman who specializes in trauma and anxiety, and she doesn't act like I'm crazy when I explain everything that happened. She helps me work through the paranoia and hypervigilance, teaching me techniques to calm down when I start spiraling into obsessive thoughts about being watched. I'm sleeping better now that the immediate threat seems to have passed, though I still check my locks twice before bed, and I probably always will. My work responsibilities start getting restored gradually over the next few weeks, as I prove I can handle my regular tasks again. My boss mentions during a video call that she's glad to see me back to normal and assigns me to a client project I got pulled from last month. It's not a complete reset to how things were before all this started, but it's real progress and I'm relieved my career didn't get completely destroyed by everything that happened. Daniela messages me asking if I want to meet for coffee to debrief the whole experience now that things have calmed down. We meet at a place downtown that's busy enough to feel safe but quiet enough to actually talk. She tells me about the legal threats the newspaper received and how their lawyers handled it. and I tell her about the therapy and getting my job responsibilities back. We end up talking for 2 hours and agree on boundaries for any future tips she might need my help with. She'll do the investigating, and I won't do any more solo stakeouts or confrontations with suspicious people. We've become actual friends through this whole ordeal, bonded by the shared experience of exposing something most people still don't fully believe happened. Walking home that evening, I pass a telephone pole on my usual route that used to always have coded messages taped to it. The pole is completely blank now, just old staples and torn paper scraps from other flyers. I feel that familiar urge rising up to stop and investigate, to look for patterns or hidden meanings in the torn edges and faded ink stains. My brain wants to obsess and decode, and spend hours analyzing something that probably means nothing. But I consciously choose to keep walking instead, enjoying the quiet evening and the fact that I can just be a normal person going home after coffee with a friend. The blank pole stays blank behind me and I don't look back. So yeah, that is basically the story. Nothing dramatic, just life being life. Thanks for hanging out with me. It is always nice having you here. Come back again if you feel like it.